Good evening. I, Kathleen Farrell, Sterling Town Clerk, have inspected the return of service on the warrant, and having found it to be in order, do hereby call to order this annual town meeting, the legislative body of the town of Sterling, today, May 1st, 2023. Please join as we salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Since we're absent a moderator, the first order of business is to elect a temporary moderator to preside over this town meeting. Richard Lane has offered to perform the duties of moderator tonight. If there is only one person nominated tonight, only one vote will be required to elect the temporary moderator. Do I have a nomination for Richard Lane as temporary moderator for the purposes of this meeting? Do I hear a second? Are there additional nominations? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Further hearing no objections, I declare that Richard Lane is the sole nominee for the position of temporary moderator for this meeting. So you all have your clickers. This will be the first vote on to elect a temporary moderator. So can we allow it to last 15 seconds?
Can we take a vote on the motion?
Yeah, so I just opened the vote. Okay, I would make it last a little bit longer because there can be a slight delay.
Okay. We're going to keep the vote open for 30 seconds. All those in favor, vote yes on your clicker. And if you're opposed, vote no.
Should this monitor be on?
Are you kidding me? It's my son. Because we should see the votes here?
Should we see the votes on this thing?
Yes, you should.
Yeah, mine's plugged in and fine. It looks like it is. Well, hold on one second. Judge, you gotta knock the table. There it goes. Yeah, it's on for now.
So do you want me to call the vote? Has it been long enough? I'm going to call the vote. So as town clerk, I declare the election of the temporary moderator as Richard Lane and will administer the oath of office. Richard, please come forward. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. Please raise your right hand. Do you, Richard Lane, solemnly swear to faithfully and impartially perform your duties as town moderator for the town of Sterling to the best of your ability and understanding?
I do.
According to Sterling bylaws, the general laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the Constitution of the United States.
I do.
Thank you very much. Let me know if you need anything.
Good evening, everyone. Before we start, I'd just like to mention that our moderator suffered a medical issue today, and I would ask that you keep her and her family in your thoughts and or your prayers today. I'd like to ask for volunteers for runners for microphones in case there are people that can't approach the mic. Do we have some volunteers in the audience that would be willing to bring microphones to those in the audience? Volunteer? Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we should all know how to use our voting device now, so I don't think I have to go through those instructions. And for today's meeting, there will be some rules in place for the running of the meeting. In order to be recognized, you must approach the microphone. If you are unable to approach the microphone and you would like to speak during discussion, please raise your hand so that a microphone may be brought to you. Once recognized, you must identify yourself. And if you are not a legal resident of Sterling, you must declare that before you speak. Discussion will be limited to the motion being discussed on the floor. Any other comments, editorials, any personal attacks will be ruled out of order. And except in very unusual circumstances, the use of another person's name during discussion shall be considered a personal attack. Individuals shall be limited to 3 minutes. Each comment should reflect new thoughts or insights. If someone else has already made a point which you intended to make, please respect everyone's time and refrain from repeating that point. All questions shall be directed to the moderator. All amendments to articles shall be submitted in writing to the moderator. And each vote for each article will be given 30 seconds. I would also ask that if you intend to speak on an article to introduce the article or to explain the article, please approach the microphone as the article is being introduced so as to save time during the meeting. At this point, I would entertain a motion to dispense with the readings of the warrant. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we will vote. Vote starts now. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, this was a simple majority. We're dispensing with the reading of the warrant. Yes votes 133, no votes 3. The motion passes. We'll move ahead to Article 1 on the General Fund Omnibus Budget. I would like to remind people that the complete budget is in the back of your warrant for your review. At this point, I would entertain a motion to move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $12,715,727 and to transfer the additional sum of $580,176 from the additional sources identified in the warrant under Article 1 for a total appropriation of $13,295,903 to be expended as shown in the municipal operating and omnibus budget as printed at the back of the warrant. I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion?
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to offer a motion to amend.
Okay.
Would you like me to walk it down?
What? Oh, you have to identify yourself, please?
David Gibbs, 353 Redemption Rock Trail.
Okay.
I have it written.
Okay, we have a motion to amend.
He's moving to strike any appropriation from the cemetery perpetual care account in the amount of $10,000. Okay, and he wants to basically increase this from 12,715 to 12,725, and decrease this from 581.76 to 570. What's that about the motions? Right, but he's looking to strike this 10,000 from the appropriation. So you got to put another 10,000 in the raise and appropriate. Yeah, yeah. So he's moving to amend. Right. Well, you got to hear a second first. Okay.
Okay.
And if anybody has any questions, I can just explain that.
Okay. So the motion to amend that's on the floor is a move to strike and further appropriate, excuse me. Okay, excuse me. I'm going to start over. The motion states a move to strike the words "and to further appropriate from the cemetery perpetual care amount $10,000." That's the motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Do I have a discussion?
Could I speak to the motion?
Say it again.
May I speak to the motion?
Yes.
The Perpetual Care Fund is used for cemetery maintenance, and it has been a fund that has been around for over 150 years, that donors give to the fund for the perpetual care of the cemetery. $10,000 in relation to a $13 million budget is an infinitesimal amount, but the cemetery is in dire need of assistance and rehab, and that $10,000 would go a long way to doing that. So I would ask that you support this motion to remove that.
My name is Ryan Moradian. I am not a legal resident of the town of Sterling. I am the DPW superintendent in the town of Sterling. May I speak on that motion? Just for clarification, the reason that we increased this to $10,000 is we were planning on doing $10,000 worth of repaving on cemetery roads this fiscal year. So that was the reason for the increase in perpetual care money out of the cemetery perpetual care fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we are voting on the amendment to the article. It is a simple majority. Simple majority vote. We will start the voting now. Voting is closed. The amendment is defeated. Yes votes 52, no votes 103. So the amendment stands, the article stands as written in the warrant. Right. So at this point in time, I will entertain discussion on the motion as previously read. Do we have someone from the Finance Committee that would like to make a statement?
Good evening. Just in interest of time, I'll keep it brief, but the budget
Can you
being-
identify yourself first?
Oh, sorry.
A
My
little
name
bit
is
closer.
Chris Paquette.
Thank you.
I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. The budget before you that's being presented this evening is a culmination of months of work developing a fiscally responsible plan that invests in the town and its people. I feel that the hours that went into planning this budget on the part of Bill Caldwell, the town administrator, Fred Aponte, the Board of Selectmen, and the members of the Finance Committee reflect the commitment that we have to making Sterling a great place to both live and work. This budget supports the retention of experienced staff through the recently completed compensation study, as shown in the increases in wages and salaries throughout this budget. And the key to this budget is investing in the people, because people are what make this town so special. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we will vote. This is a simple majority vote, and voting will start now. Voting is closed. The budget passes. Yes votes, 150. No votes, 16. Article 2, I would entertain a motion to move that the town raise and appropriate $13,135,104 for the town's assessment to the Wachusett Regional School District. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. I'll entertain discussion at this point. Right. Do we have someone from the school committee? Superintendent? Do you want to come up and discuss or introduce them? Okay, thank you. Yes, if you could go up to the microphone, we'd appreciate that.
Good evening. My name is Jim Riley. I'm the superintendent of the Wachusett Regional School District. I'm not a resident of Sterling at this time. Just wanted to say a few words on the budget that we're presenting tonight. From my message, it's an honor to speak to you on behalf of the Wachusett Regional School District and to thank our member towns for their continued support. The focus of our work this year has been to provide an honest and transparent accounting of where we stand in terms of our student experience, as well as the management of the district as a whole. In both of these areas, we still have much to accomplish. We are striving to make each of our schools a welcoming, safe, and supportive environment where all of our students belong and get the support they need. We will also continue to prioritize school safety, not only training of our staff and students, but advocating for improvements to our facilities. Nearly all of our capital improvement requests this year focus on addressing the security infrastructure of our buildings by the addition of upgraded entry systems and cameras. In terms of district management, there is a dire need to update and correct many of our operational systems. This includes our budgeting process, which has not provided a true accounting of what it costs to run the district or properly advocated for student needs. We have placed a particular emphasis this year on following school committee guidance on appropriate class size. This is essential as we try to support all our students who are at increased risk due to the disrupted learning of the past 3 years. In particular, in Sterling, this would be the addition of classroom teachers too at the Houghton Elementary School. I'd like to thank all of our families, teachers, staff, and community members for the continued support and dedication to the children of the Wachusett Regional School District. I know we all share the goal of providing our students with a quality education that will prepare them to pursue their dreams.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Mr. Moderator, Jim Gettin, 7 Shady Lane. I have some facts and figures about this budget request and some recent past history about the school budgeting and enrollment numbers and that sort of thing. At my email request made Thursday, the school district finally posted its fiscal 2024 budget book on late Friday. I copied a couple pages of it. The budget increase requested year over year from last year is a full $7 million, the biggest budget increase in the history of the school district. That, ladies and gentlemen, is an outrage and an insult to every property taxpayer in the district. Last year's budget was $109 million. This year's budget request is $116 million. Now, in your hands, you don't have the full factual background. I ran some numbers on the school district. Since fiscal year 2010, up to this fiscal year, the school district dropped or lost 754 students. That's a full 10% of the enrollment. Under state statute, the school district was authorized to do reductions in force to mirror the reduction in the school population. They failed to do so. And I would argue it's because they don't have the moral integrity or the fortitude to make the budget cuts. I have the full payroll in my hand. Names, job titles, salaries. It's 22 pages, single-spaced. 1,000 people plus or minus on the payroll. There are 6.7 employees for every student. That's totally out of whack. Probably unknown to most of you, the authorized fiscal year 2022 budget was $105 million. The school district actually overspent that authorized budget by $1.6 million. That was reported in the landmark, but very few people get the landmark. The school district for 2021 was required by state regulations, 603 Code of Massachusetts Regulations, section 10.10, to submit its end-of-year budget, end-of-year
30
audit.
more seconds, Mr. Gittens.
Okay, so the school district filed its required state audit for fiscal year 2021 a year late this April. Now they've just started late their fiscal year 2022 budget. I ask you not to reward this fiscal irresponsibility and save yourselves a huge chunk of change on your property tax bills by rejecting this article. Thank you.
Further discussion?
I have excuse me, this is Bob Dumont, 7 Great Pond Way. I have a technical question, probably for the Finance Committee. But, why is the school appropriation not included in the total operating budget of the town?
Okay. Does the Finance Committee have an answer to that?
Right.
Okay. Town Administrator will answer that.
Can you hear me? Okay. Typically, we break that out into 2 different articles. William Caldwell, Town Administrator, sorry. So that folks can vote on each, the town operating and the school district operating and Monty Tech operating separately.
Okay, but isn't it deceptive to say that the town's operating budget is one number, and then the school budget is almost the same amount on this warrant, and therefore we've got a total commitment to the taxpayers of 26 million something or other, right?
Correct. That's all in the back of the warrant. You can see the entire budget combined there at the back.
Okay, but it's not in, all right. Thank you. I understand your explanation. I'm not sure I agree with it, but.
Further discussion? Yes, sir. Superintendent.
Just wanted to make a point of clarification. The landmark reported on a estimated over expenditure of $1.65 million because it was reported during a school committee meeting in August by myself. And as soon as the school system knew that there was potential that we had overspent, I shared it. In a previous fiscal year before I started on July 1st, I will say that we've closed out fiscal year 22, and what was estimated at $1.65 million is actually $400,000. Still way too much and not okay and not acceptable, but that's why we're taking the steps we have to be fully transparent about these things. You can look up any school committee meeting during this entire year, and everything that we have learned about our financial systems has been reported. And I think we're working hard to correct that. This budget this year is based on actual expenditures that we incurred during FY23 and then also fiscal year 22. We're doing the best we can, but we are, in my mind, behaving extremely responsibly at this time. We do have to rebuild our trust with our communities, and I accept that, and this is part of our process of trying to do that. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Marina Meehan, and I reside at 63 Swihil Road. I just had an inquiry about, there has been some town, I guess, gossip and some facts about some recent corruption within the schools and embezzlement with money. And so I just wanted to ask, how can we assure this time around that our money is going to the right places and not other people's pockets?
Well, I believe that question was just answered by the superintendent.
Well, I just want to know, like, specifically, is there a way that you're diving into these things and who you're hiring to handle these issues?
Do you have a further answer to that, superintendent?
Only that we have no proof of embezzlement. What happened is, I think, there are two things. One, I don't think the district has properly accounted for what it costs to run the district. And so we were doing things when they were creating the budget, and again, I have to say this is before I started, where they would take a percentage increase, like say of our salary line, and multiply it by 3%, instead of basing it on what the actual expenses were. That's number one. And then I would say in the last couple of years, with things like facilities and other things needing upgrades, especially when there was concern over the spread of COVID, we went over in our facilities lines. The district went over in its substitute lines and the salary lines, and that's where the overtures were. But there has been no proof of any embezzlement or anything like that. And if that was the case, we'd be making it public and we would be charging people with crimes. And so that just isn't true.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Linda Woodland. I reside at 4 Deborah Lane, and I am a member of the school committee. I'm also the vice chair of the school committee for another week. And I just want to say that one of the things that was remarkable about this past year in building the budget is that we had a lot of our questions that we have been asking for years get answered. There has been incredible turnover this year in the central office and in our school buildings across the district. And part of that is bringing about that transparency that we have been asking for years. And this budget was a breath of fresh air from having the building request fully discussed, which had not been allowed in previous years. And I believe that with the budget that is presented here is what I like to refer to as a moral document. This is what we're funding, this is what we value, and so I would ask for support.
Mr. Moderator, Jim Gettin, 7 Shady Lane. I think I can address a couple points brought up by the other lady about the responsibility. So the school district posted a full year and 1 week late its required audit for fiscal year 2021. That was just posted the first week of April. And the auditor, in its cover letter or initial statement, remarked that the school district had only one check signer. So there was no oversight on signing checks. And so the auditor recommended that there be at least another authorized signatory person for every check. The other thing is, I think surprisingly or shockingly, is that the auditor told the school district to contact every bank in the region and find out if unauthorized accounts were set up under the school district's taxpayer ID number. So that tells you that they didn't really know where the money was going, and the auditor, I think, was signaling the possibility of embezzlement and misallocation of funds to unauthorized bank accounts. Thank you.
Okay. At this point in time, we're going to bring this to a vote. This passage requires a majority vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The article passes, 108 yes votes, 67 no votes. Article 3, Montechusett Vocational Regional School Assessment. I'll entertain a motion to move that the town raise and appropriate $1,018,231 for the town's assessment to the Montechusett Regional Vocational School. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Do we have someone from Montechusett here that would like to discuss the budget?
Good evening, folks. My name is Tom Brown. I'm superintendent at Monty Tech, and I'm not a resident of Sterling. If you review the budget profile that's in the town warrant, you'll see that it is very similar to last year's budget. There is a slight increase of about $42,000 in the budget, with the student enrollment basically staying the same number. So I think it's decreased by 1 student. There's not much change to the budget, but we do want to assure you that the students from Sterling are doing a fantastic job at Monty Tech. We appreciate all that they do, and we appreciate working with the community here as well.
Thank you, Superintendent. Further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to put this article to a vote. This is a majority vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The article passes. Yes votes 170, no votes 7. The next articles on in our warrant are considered the consent agenda, Articles 4 through 12. These articles represent annual fund transfers that are generally routine in nature and reoccur each year and typically do not require any explanation or debate. What we will do is I will read through each of these articles by title, If someone wants a hold on that article to discuss it, please voice that. Otherwise, we will vote on all of these articles in one vote as a consent agenda. Article 4, snow and ice deficit. Article 5, elected officers' compensation. Article 6, municipal light board compensation. Article 7, stabilization fund. Article 8, capital investment fund. Article 9, OPEB trust fund. Article 10, reserve fund for fiscal year '24. Article 11, ambulance receipts to capital investment fund. Article 12, prior year warrant articles. Having heard no holds, we will vote on this consent agenda as one article, and one vote, rather. I would entertain a motion to move that the town, by unanimous consent, combine Articles 4 through 12 into a consent calendar and to approve these articles that have not been requested to be held in one vote as shown in the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will start the vote. The vote starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 168, no votes 8. From here we move to the Water Enterprise Fund, Article 13, Fiscal Year 2024 Water Operating Budget. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to appropriate from the Water Department revenue the sum of $1,311,286 as printed in the warrant under Article 13. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll put this motion to a vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 163, no votes 7. Article 14, Water Department Capital. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to approve capital expenditures for the Water Department in the sum of $980,000. With $400,000 transferred from the water retained earnings and authorizing the treasurer-collector to borrow the sum of $580,000 under applicable statutes as set forth in the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing no discussion, we will go to a vote. Voting starts now. This vote requires a 2/3 majority. Voting is closed. The article passes by 2/3. Yes votes 161, no votes 11. Move on to Article 15, capital projects and the funding sources. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to transfer a sum totaling $1,652,200 using free cash in the amount of $682,200. The Capital Investment Fund in the amount of $865,000. Sale of used equipment in the amount of $40,000. And cemetery lot sales in the amount of $45,000 for capital items as presented in Article 15 of the warrant. Do I hear a motion? I hear a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Yes.
Judith Doherty, Sweat Hill Road. So I'm questioning number 10, and I admit I haven't been in the squad room, but I remember that police building being very new. So I'm wondering why we need to have a renovation.
Okay. Okay. The chief is present. He will attempt to address your concern.
Sean Goddard, Chief of Police, and I am not a resident of Sterling. The building's over 20-some odd years old now. Some of the countertops are sagging. The cabinets are defaced from use. The flooring is well used. So my intention is to do as many projects as possible with that amount. Just replacing the chairs in the back room, they have to be significantly more well-built for the amount of time they're used and to the width for the gear we carry, things like that. So even just the chairs themselves are around $2,000 a piece. The flooring is going to be substantial and may not even be able to be included in that just because of it. So it is an older building, and it's just minor upgrades from being used 365, 24 hours a day.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move this to vote. This does require a 2/3 vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The article passes. Yes votes 160, no votes 15. Move on to Article 16, DPW Facility Feasibility Study. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to appropriate $50,000 from the Capital Investment Fund for the purpose of a feasibility study for the DPW facility. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion?
Moderator Bill Gall, 155 Kendall Hill Road. I'd like to hear some discussion on why we're thinking of leaving that spot and so forth. I'd like to hear some of the reasoning behind this article.
Okay. Do we have someone that wants to address that question? Ryan?
Good evening again, Ryan Meridian, DPW Superintendent, not a resident of Sterling. No decisions have been made whether we would stay at that site or move that site at this point. That's part of the crux of this money. So we've spent about $20,000 in the last 2 years just simply reviewing our operations, our space needs, the equipment that we have, the staffing that we have, and how it would fit into our current application or a renovation or a new building. The purpose of this money is to continue that forward. We want to create a DPW facility committee or a building committee and really hash out whether renovation, again, at our existing site's the best option, a new build at our existing site, a new build at a future site. So none of those decisions have been made to date.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Patrick Fox, Tanglewood Road. I think we have to be very careful about this particular proposal. It is initially a proposal to spend $50,000, but it may well be a gateway to spending $25 million. And I think that the citizens and the taxpayers need to be really persuaded and convinced that that kind of investment is necessary. I don't know to what extent the department has explored the possibility of renovations, whether that certainly would be a cheaper alternative. And I'm just concerned about this expenditure, and I think we ought to be careful about what's down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Roseanne Mapp, 33 Taft Road. I'd just like to understand, what is your projection for the DPW in the next few years to require a change like this? Thank you.
Ryan Meridian, DPW Superintendent. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that are coming up, the salt shed is essentially failing. It's about to fall in on itself. So that's something that's going to have to get redone. That's close to a $500,000 expense. Our underground fuel tanks are soon to be uninsured because of their nature of being underground. They were built in the, I believe, the mid-90s or early 90s. That would need to be redone. That's close to $750,000 or $1 million expense just in those two items right there. So what that doesn't include is seeing, daylight through the cracks in the walls and things like that. So those are just some of the expenses that will be coming down the road should we choose not to do a more global project. Again, I want to stress that renovation hasn't been pushed out. No decisions of those sorts have been made, and that's where a citizen building committee made up of citizens such as yourself will make those decisions. It's not going to be on the DPW board. It's certainly not going to be on myself. So it would be much like any other building that happened here in town.
Roseanne Mapp, 33 Taft Road. I was more questioning, are you expecting growth in the department? And what do you plan, what do you foresee in the next 10, 15 years pertaining to the building that you're in versus a new one? Thank you.
Just in terms of growth, we would like to add another admin staff, whether it's an engineer, an assistant superintendent, someone to assist with a lot of the larger projects that we now have going on. It puts a lot of strain on some of the staff that isn't used to doing that kind of work. As far as equipment, a lot of our equipment is already outside. We have well over $3.5 million worth of equipment with the DPW, and not being able to park or store that inside definitely reduces that life. So, we're going to always be there to plow the roads and clear the streets and pave and do what we need to do. But this is a project that isn't going to go away in one shape or form or another.
Yes, sir.
This Bob Dumont, 7 Great Pond Way. These questions are appropriate, but the proposal seems to me to be a very intelligent way to manage the organization and to look at all the options, and it would seem to me good management should be rewarded with a positive vote on this item.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to put this article to a vote. This passage requires a 2/3 vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes, 125. No votes, 44. Oh, excuse me, it passes by 2/3 with that vote tally. On to the next article, Article 17, Job Classification. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 201, Attachment 1, Classification Plan, as presented in Article 17 of the warrant. Do I hear a motion? I hear a motion. Do I have a second? I hear a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this to a vote. This requires a majority vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. Motion passes. Yes votes, 154. No votes, 16. We move on to Article 18, Compensation Schedule. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 201, Attachment 2, Compensation Schedule, as presented in Article 18 of the warrant. Do I hear a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll put that to a vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. Article passes. Yes votes, 143. No votes, 19. We move on to Article 19, Compensation Schedule, Call Fire Force. Excuse me. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 201, Attachment 3, Compensation Schedule, Call Fire Force, as represented in the Article 19 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll put this to a vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. Passage required a majority vote, and the article does pass. Yes votes, 158. No votes, 6. Move on to Article 20, Stipend Positions. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 201, Attachment 4, Stipend Positions, as presented in Article 20 of the 2023 warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this motion to a vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 153, no votes 7. Move on to Article 21, miscellaneous positions. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 201, Attachment 6, miscellaneous positions, as presented in Article 21 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this motion to a vote, and voting will start now. And voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 154, no votes 10. Move on to Article 22, longevity schedule. Would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the Sterling Personnel Bylaw, Chapter 205-5, Section C, presented in Article 23 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Yes.
Great Pond Way. This schedule applies to non-union positions in accordance with what's described here. We have, the town has no sense of whether there are longevity elements in the collective bargaining agreements or not, and how closely these changes or proposed changes coincide with anything that's in the collective bargaining. Could somebody enlighten us about that, please?
I'm going to ask the town administrator to respond to that question.
Sure. Each one of the collective bargaining agreements, fire and police, have longevity in there. Dispatch does not at this time, and the non-union had that. We are replacing it with different language. It is generally in line. We're trying to keep it as a dollar figure as opposed to a percentage so that people stay on the compensation chart in the previous article.
Okay, sir.
Scott Handler, 11 Matthew Lane. Mr. Moderator, point of order. I believe you just read on this article that it was presented in Article 23 of the warrant. It's actually Article 22 of the warrant.
Yep. That is correct.
Okay.
It is Article 22, but in the motion it says 23.
That is correct. So I'm going to restate the motion. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend the Sterling Personnel Bylaw, Chapter 205-5, Section C, presented in Article 22 of the warrant. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I want to thank the gentleman that brought that up because that is important that we're accurate. And hearing no discussion, I will put this to a vote. It is a majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes, 145. No votes, 18. Now we will move on to Article 23. Mass General Law acceptance on nomination papers. I would entertain a motion to move that the town accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 53, Section 9A. Do I have such a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion, second. Any discussion?
Mr. Moderator, I would move to indefinitely postpone.
Okay. So we have a motion to indefinitely postpone this article. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? If you want to be recognized, please approach the microphone, state your name.
So,
Would you like
ladies-
to explain, Ms. Clerk?
Sure, I'm happy
Madam
to.
Clerk.
The So unfortunately, the article as written in the warrant is asking us to accept an MGL that we've already accepted as a community. What I was really trying to do was fall in compliance with the Votes Act of 2022 so that I wouldn't be forced to have voting registration deadlines fall on a Saturday. So sadly, there's a mistake here, and I'm not sure it falls within the four corners of the article as written. So I'll present it again next year.
Okay. So the motion on the table is to indefinitely postpone this article. There's no more discussion, so we will vote, and this requires a majority vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The vote passes. The amendment passes. Yes votes 135, no votes 10. We'll move on to Article 24, Mass General Law Acceptance, Veterans Property Tax Exemption. I would entertain a motion to move that the town accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22F, to decrease the residency requirement for veteran property tax exemption from 2 years to 1 year. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, Dick Shepherd, Board of Assessors. This was put on the warrant because of a change in Mass General Law. It's really not going to mean a great deal as far as taxes are concerned, the impact to the tax rate. We have very few veterans that do apply. When they apply, it's based on whether or not they have a disability, and if they have a disability between 10% and 100%, they would get a reduction in their taxes. It's not, we're lucky if we see 1 or 2 people a year. Right now we only have about 12 that see these statutory exemptions. So I'd ask you to pass this.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, I will put this to a vote. This requires a majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. This requires a simple majority. Yes votes, 156. No votes, 9. Article passes. Move on to Article 25, Mass General Law Acceptance, Municipal Officer Indemnification. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to indefinitely postpone Article 25. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Dumont would like to know why.
Is that correct?
Yes. I'm not going to make him drive back there. So.
2 reasons. 1, it would also require a ballot vote, and 2, we already operate and have insurance policies that cover committees in the case that action was taken against them.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this to a vote. This requires a majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes, 148. No votes, 9. Moving on to Article 26, General Bylaw Trash User Fees. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Chapter 136, Section 6 of the town's general bylaws relative to trash collection fees as presented in Article 26 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Yes, sir.
Scott Handler, 11 Matthew Lane. Mr. Moderator, I encourage everybody in the town meeting to read this article extremely carefully. Lines 558 and 559 show what the current bylaw is, and it states, residential property owners and tenants shall not be charged for any user fee for the town's collection and disposal of residential trash, period, end of sentence. The underlined addition to changes to the bylaw put the decision of what the maximum amount is in the hands of the Board of Public Works and takes it away from town meeting to decide fees associated with trash collection. That's a major change. We're giving up something that we've had in this town for many years. And some of you who are regulars at this town meeting may remember a number of years ago on the warrant was an article for a 2.5 override for trash collection, which was voted down. If this article passes as currently in the warrant, the Board of Public Works, they can have a public hearing, open to everybody, advertised in the newspaper. They could listen to 1,000 citizens say, we don't like what you're going to do, and they could do it. Because it's no longer the town meeting's prerogative to make the decision, it's now the Board of Public Works. I understand the intent behind this. There are people who say that one trash collection container is not enough for them. So why wasn't a maximum weekly volume included in this article? The argument may be that, well, things might change and we want the ability to change as things changed. When things need to change, it comes to town meeting. We just looked at human resource articles 18 to 21 and changed classifications and how much people got paid when the need arose. It came to town meeting. It wasn't decided by a board within the town. This year, we're spending $666,000 for trash collection. With the 3,200 households roughly in the town of Sterling, that works out to about $200 a year for trash collection. Mark my words, if this article passes as written, sometime in the future, it may not be 2 months from now, it may not be 2 years from now, but at some point we're going to be paying for trash collection on top of our property taxes. Because of that, Mr. Moderator, I encourage people not to vote positively on this article.
Further discussion?
Hi, Linda Woodland for Deborah Lane. I just have a question to clarify if this would be only for over the maximum on trash, or would that be also for recycling as well?
Ryan Meridian, DPW Superintendent. Trash would be for trash only, would be this warrant article.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we'll put this to a vote. This requires a majority vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The article is defeated. Yes votes 35, no votes 136. Moving on to Article 27, Accessory Dwelling Unit Bylaw. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 301-2.3.5 of the Protective Bylaw relating to accessory dwelling units as presented in Article 27 of the warrant. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Fox.
Mr. Moderator Patrick Fox, on behalf of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I wish to offer a proposed amendment to the article. I have it in writing.
Okay, we have a amendment proposal.
Mr. Moderator, as the town planner, can I explain the article before people vote on it?
Right now, we have to discuss the proposed amendment. Okay. I apologize. I should have let you come up first. So the proposed amendment to Article 27 is at line 596 as it appears in the warrant by deleting the words "or special permit." At line 599 by deleting line 599. At line 622 by deleting the words "included in new detached structures," including new detached structures, excuse me. And at lines 641 through 647 by deleting lines 641 through 647. Does anyone need me to repeat those? Okay, I will repeat them. At line 596, as it appears in the warrant, by deleting the words "or special permit." At line 599, by deleting line 599. At line 622, by deleting the words "including new detached structures." And at lines 641 through 647 by deleting lines 641 through 647.
Mr.
Again,
Moderator, may I speak to the amendment?
Right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now we can have discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The purpose of the amendments would be to delete any references to detached structures from Article 27. And I think I need to give just hopefully a brief history of this, what this bylaw is all about, to explain the reason for the proposed amendment. Up until last year, the town had an accessory dwelling unit bylaw that provided for attached structures, structures attached to a single-family residence, provided a special permit was granted by the ZBA, and provided the particular requirements in the bylaw were met. Requirements such as the maximum square area of the unit, the owner of the residence had to live in either the ADU or the residence. There were requirements regarding bathroom and kitchen facilities, etc. Provided those requirements were met, provided a special permit was granted, an attached structure would be allowed. Last year, or perhaps 2 years ago, the town created an affordable housing committee, and as the name implies, the purpose of that committee was to come up with some suggestions to increase the stock of affordable housing in town. The Affordable Housing Committee worked with the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, and as a result of that collaboration, there were suggestions made that resulted in last year's bylaw. Last year, the bylaw was changed to allow, first of all, attached units to be a matter of right, provided the requirements of the bylaw were met. In other words, it was not necessary to get a special permit from the ZBA. And last year, in addition, an amendment was made to allow for detached structures.
30 more seconds.
In other words, if you had a shed or a garage, or some other structure in your property, you could create a detached ADU. The purpose was to develop affordable housing. Our concern is that that's not likely to occur, and what we may see is a lot of mini houses popping up on lots that were designed for one residence. So it's up to the voters. If that is what people want, that's fine, but we're suggesting, and this is a unanimous recommendation of the ZBA, that we delete the references to detached structures. There still would be an ADU bylaw allowing for attached structures.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Mr. Town Planner, would you like to address that?
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Wallace. I'm your town planner. I've only been on the job 6 months, so mercifully, we've only got a few zoning amendments to pitch to you tonight. Regarding the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, as Mr. Fox said, it was passed at last year's town meeting, and the zoning board is the special permit granting authority for detached accessory dwelling units. Just want to explain that attached accessory dwelling units are those located within the residence, so it's like an in-law apartment, whereas a detached accessory dwelling unit is like an apartment above a barn or a garage or a workshop. The zoning board found the bylaw difficult to interpret, especially for the detached accessory dwelling units, and wanted it removed. The planning board wanted to keep the option for detached accessory dwelling units, and so we revised the bylaw to add what we believe to be appropriate guidance that the zoning board can use when evaluating special permits for accessory dwelling units that are attached. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Yes, sir.
Alan Hoffman, Board of Health. I happen to be the chairman. The detached units, I mean, we had some applications last year. Being a town that doesn't have sewerage is a big issue when you start talking about detached buildings. You have to have a new septic system. You have to somehow get rid of the sewerage. It creates. We went through some of these issues last year. We did approve one with a lot of restrictions, but then they decided not to build it. I would urge you not to allow detached buildings to be used as accessory dwellings. Thank you.
So just stay here. Dawn Hartnett, 14 Quail Street. So are you saying that if you put, if
you have a question, you should address it
I'm
this
sorry.
way.
Are you saying that if you put a room above your garage that counts as a bedroom, you don't have to change your septic? Because I think that's the same thing, right? If I have a 3-bedroom ranch, and if I want to add a 4th bedroom, I have to upgrade my septic, whether I do it as an addition to my house or as a little standalone. So I just wanted some clarification on that last comment, which I do agree with you with.
I don't believe that is pertinent, but Mr. Hoffman, you can address that.
Under the state codes, you have to provide septic for however many bedrooms you have. My point was that having what could be a new detached building, you're basically allowing a new residence on a lot, which in Sterling creates problems. That's my point.
I believe the town planner want to address that question at all? No. Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we will vote on the amendment. This is a majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. The amendment to the article passes. Yes votes 97, no votes 68. So now we return our attention to the article itself with the amendments as just proposed. Do I have a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 301, Section 2.3.5 of the protective bylaw relating to accessory dwelling units as presented in Article 27 and the amendment that was just passed of the warrant? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion on that? Hearing no discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. You need to approach the microphone for me to recognize you.
Maybe I missed something. Bill Gall, 155 Kendall Hill Road, but isn't it clear in 617 that it has to have adequate provision for sewage disposal, private septic system? Doesn't that cover both the ADU and a detached?
Is that question concerning the amendment that we just passed? Or is it concerning this article?
Isn't that still in there? 617?
Okay.
Still in there, you are correct.
So it's in there. So it's protected now.
Okay, Mr. Town Planner, can you address everyone at the microphone so that everybody knows what the answer to that question was?
The provision that the accessory dwelling unit shall have an adequate supply of drinking water and adequate provision for sewage disposal as determined by the Board of Health or its qualified agent. That stays in there. The Board of Health authorization is required prior to the issuance of a building permit for an accessory dwelling unit.
Further discussion?
I'm Judy Doherty, Sweat Hill Road. I'm looking at line 635, number 17, and I get a little confused. A non-conforming lot. So beside our property, there's a non-conforming lot because it doesn't have enough frontage. Is this saying that the non-conforming lot can go ahead and put whatever little structure on it, the owner of the non-conforming lot that doesn't have enough frontage?
No, it just means that the principal residential structure on a non-conforming lot can have an accessory dwelling unit within it as long as the lot is greater than 20,000 square feet.
Forgive me my confusion. So if frontage is the issue, so that it's a piece of land that wouldn't have any structure on it otherwise, can they put a structure on it now with this new provision?
Like a new single-family house? No.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this to a vote. This is a majority vote. Voting starts now. All right, that's what I was thinking. Okay, voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes, 124. No votes, 29. Let's point, we'll move on to Article 28, and I would entertain a motion to indefinitely postpone Article 28. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Dumont wants to know why.
There you go.
Article 28 was a backup just in case Article 27 failed.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this to a vote. It's a majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. Article passes. Yes votes 131, no votes 5. Moving on to Article 29, temporary moratorium on non-medical marijuana establishments. Passage of this requires a 2/3 vote. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 301-4 of the protective bylaw so as to repeal the temporary moratorium on non-medical marijuana establishments as presented in Article 29 of this warrant. Do I hear a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Mr. Planner.
Yes, this is a housekeeping amendment for your zoning. This particular provision expired in 2018. It's no longer relevant. All it's doing is taking up space in your zoning bylaw. Removing this doesn't change anything about how the town regulates adult use marijuana. The status quo will remain unchanged.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. The article passes by a 2/3 majority. And I lost my numbers. There we go. Yes votes 132, no votes 20. Moving on to Article 30, Primrose Lane acceptance. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to accept Primrose Lane as a public way as presented in Article 30 of the warrant. Do I hear a motion? I hear a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Calcaridi, 12 Matthew Lane, Planning Board Chair. The Planning Board recommends the passage of this article.
Further discussion?
Michael Piniel, former member of the Planning Board, 41 Tuttle Road. Did Mr. Picari install his driveway which was a condition of the subdivision. He presently uses the neighboring lot, Lot 2, to enter his property, and a right-of-way does not exist and is not allowed in the subdivision. So this is not a completed project and should not be allowed.
Mr. Moderator, the right-of-way being used by Mr. Piqueri to access his house is a legal, recorded right-of-way. It was voted on by the planning board at the time. It was approved, it was constructed, and it's recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Therefore, it's a legal right-of-way. The plan that did not show the right-of-way was amended to show the right-of-way because it did not show the right-of-way by error.
Great job. That driveway was supposed to be constructed a long time ago, 2 years, 3 years ago. The Board of Selectmen permitted the entry to the property, and I think the planning board has made a grave mistake.
Once again, it is a legal right-of-way.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote. This requires... Oh, I'm sorry.
Just like to wonder what the benefit to the town accepting this road would be. This is George Handy, 8 Sweat Hill Road. I am a resident.
Thank you.
It's standard procedure when a roadway's been installed that once the roadway's been complete and signed off by all the boards in town that are involved with the construction of the road, certifying its completion, that the town accept it and it become a town road.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we will put this to a vote. This requires a majority vote. Voting starts now. Okay, voting is closed. The article passes. Yes votes 81, no votes 77. Moving on to Article 31, West Sterling Schoolhouse Referendum. I will entertain a motion to move that the town vote to keep and maintain the West Sterling Schoolhouse. Do I have? Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? I would ask that a member of the Select Board clarify the meaning of this or the idea behind it.
This is a referendum vote just to get a feel of how people feel about keeping the schoolhouse. It's another historic property up on 162 and 140 and 62. The whole finance and select board, the question was, if we keep working on it, what are we going to use it for? And does the town want to put the money into it? It needs a lot of work. There's no electric, there's no septic. If we keep it, are we going to keep pouring money into it? And if so, or do we just sell it to somebody that can do something with it? If we keep it, what are we going to use it for? Always the question. You all remember the 1835, which we're still working on. So that's what the finance board and the select board were concerned about. You know, how much more do you want to put into a property?
Further discussion?
Hi, Lindsay Van Giesen. I live on Justice Hill Cutoff. So I've been a volunteer on the Sterling Historical Commission for about 5 years. And West Sterling Schoolhouse is something that we have been working on and coming up with different plans and ideas for a lot of the time that I have been on the committee. So we did have an art show at the schoolhouse in 2021, and we had over 100 people come through the schoolhouse during that time, over that weekend. And there was a lot of excitement, a lot of interest, and people that were very, very happy to be able to just see the inside of it and just really enjoy the time there. So I think there is a lot of interest in having that building be a part of our town for a long time. And I think there's a generation of people who would be really benefit from being able to see what a one-room schoolhouse would look like and the rural character of our town and what that meant to us throughout the 19th century. So we do have a 5-year plan for what we're planning to do, the work that needs to be done. As someone mentioned before, was it $666,000 equates to $200 a year for a taxpayer. We don't plan on spending nearly that much money. So we do have quotes from different contractors and different preservation areas that can help with some of the repairs that it needs. Thank you.
Further discussion?
James French, 19 Johnson Road, and I'm on the Historical Commission. And I'll just add to Lindsay's comments to put things in perspective. The town of Sterling once had 11 school districts, 11 schoolhouses, and we now have 1 left. Sorry. So of the 11 schoolhouses that this town once had, we now have 1 left, the West Sterling Schoolhouse, which is in remarkable original condition. A few remain, have been converted to dwellings. A couple have been burned by arsons, and some have been torn down. There's 1 school left in its original condition. It does have electricity and heat. It does not have water. We have been grappling with what you refer to as adaptive reuse of an historic building. We do believe it's important for the integrity of the town to keep this resource. What it will be used for, we've been working on it and finding uses and finding a remarkable amount of interest on the part of people when we do have open houses so that people can see it. So I would recommend and encourage that the town hang on to this very valuable historic resource. Thank you.
Further discussion? Go ahead. Get a little closer, Roseanne.
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
I know that the schoolhouse is an important factor in the town of Sterling being the last one. I certainly am all for restoring or maintaining historic buildings. However, this building, this particular building, there was an art show a couple of years ago, and they tried to do some cosmetics in that building. While they were doing that cosmetic, they were painting the walls with a roller, and the paint that was on the walls was coming off on the paint rollers that they were trying to put the paint up on. So apparently there's a water issue in the building. And my question is, that was some years ago, and there's been very little to no activity over there since that time. And I know that people are interested in what it looks like and what it was like back in the day and all that other stuff. But don't you think it would be more important to do some type of feasibility study before we even commence with this to see what shape that building is in and how much it's going to cost? Because as we know, at the 1835, it's cost us more money than what it's worth. And we don't have a bottom line on what it's cost us from day one to present. So I just see no need to do this, spending a lot of money on this particular building. Thank you.
Okay. The Finance Committee wanted to make a statement.
Lynn Shepard, I'm chairman of the Capital Committee. We've seen requests about $11,000 a year to do repairs on this building, and basically it is in bad shape. Right now they're trying to repair the portico. At one time they did have one group or another who tried to go and have their meetings in the building, which was okay during the good weather, but not so great in winter. So it's a pretty small building. There's a beautiful painting of the building that's hanging in the town hall. I think if you have a building and you can't occupy it on a regular basis, not once a year or twice a year to bring school kids through or whatever, it just falls in disrepair. And no matter what you try to do, you're going to sink a lot of money into it, $11,000 at a time, or $20,000 at a time, or $50,000 at a time, and it's ongoing. So I think what the Finance Committee felt is we wanted this referendum so people can think, do we want to somehow honor this building by documenting its history through pictures, through whatever means, or do we want to repair it? And if we want to repair it, what is the purpose of this building? What are we going to use it for? Because certain uses require handicap access, all kinds of requirements that we ran into with the 1835 Town Hall. If we're not ready to do that, and this building is much smaller than the 1835 Town Hall. It's a one-room schoolhouse that didn't have any heat or lighting, doesn't have any water, or it doesn't have bathrooms. You'd have to have a porta potty outside or something. If you wanted to put bathrooms in, then you open a whole can of worms, just like the 1835 Town Hall. So we put this referendum on to the town so that people can say, yes, do we want to restore it? Do we want to archive the fact that it was here historically in some other manner?
Okay, 30 seconds.
So that's why it's on there.
David Gibbs, member of the Sterling Historical Commission. This was not a career path that the Sterling Historical Commission was looking to take. Several years back, we got a call from our then town administrator suggesting that the insurance carrier was no longer interested in insuring a building town-owned that wasn't being utilized. So the answer to that was the Sterling Historical Commission has occupied it and has their meetings there when it's seasonally allowed to, thereby making it a non-abandoned building. The building dates to 1886. It's the last public example of our one-room schoolhouses, but it also was the West Sterling Community Club, which held that part of town together by the activities there. It has electricity, it has heat. We're not asking for septic. We're not asking for full ADA compliance because historical buildings can get waivers in certain instances, even though we would like to accommodate entrance into the building. And we've proposed annual expenditures of $10,000. We're addressing the portico issue, and this year we wanted to do window reglazing for about $12,000. If you were to sell that property to someone else, the building would be stabilized and be sufficient to move. I'm not a big advocate for selling history unless there's a good reason to do so, and I think the modest sums that we would expend on it to preserve a building of this importance is a worthwhile one. And I urge you to vote affirmatively on interest in the building. Thank you.
Lindsay Van Giesen, Justice Hill Cutoff. I just had one last thing to say. When I drive by on Rugg Road and see the sign that says Mary Sawyer School once stood here, the empty lot of Mary Had a Little Lamb's School. It's very upsetting, and I would not like to see this happen to this school as well. Thank you.
Barbara Dumont, 7 Great Pond Way. Another option I wonder if could be explored would be of citizens who have a lot of interest creating maybe it takes a nonprofit, I don't know, but to own that building and to restore it, get grants, do all that. I think about the building in Berlin, something 19.
But I think those questions are beyond the article.
Okay.
If you wanted to follow that up, then you should probably vote yes on the article. But thank you.
My name is Angela Gradarati. I live at 69B Worcester Road. As a historical building, has the committee sought out grants or money from the federal or state government to help maintain this or refurbish it?
Does anyone, the historical committee or anyone, have an answer to that question? If you have an answer, you can approach the microphone. Thank you.
I do. One of the barriers to getting state funding for grants, what's known as the MPPF grants from Mass Historical Commission, is the building is not listed currently on the National Register of Historic Places, which is a requirement to apply for state grant funding through that program. We do have feelers out looking for private foundations to assist us, and former Senator Brewer is a big proponent of this cause, as he supported other building restoration projects for schoolhouses. Our plans don't involve much of a restoration, basically a stabilization, and we're
Okay, I think you've actually answered the question.
Okay, and
Thank you.
adaptive reuse is part of our goals. So.
Okay. If you're going to address, you need to get to the microphone. Yeah.
Angela Gradarati. Is there a reason it's not on the registry as a historic building?
It may indeed be eligible, but the amount of work that goes into a National Register nomination is significant, and we as a volunteer commission have not been instructed to do so.
Okay. Our discussion is getting a field of what the article is asking. So if you have a pertinent comment
It's not
or
very
question.
pertinent, except that it's an emotional appeal. When I first came to this town, I marveled at that building. My child loves it. She's ill, or she would be here tonight. She said, "Ma, they can't do that. They can't get rid of that building." I remember going there as a child. I think this has a lot of emotional attachment to the children in town from years past, and you've got two generations at least that passed through that building, that worked in that building. I think it would be a damn shame to just get rid of that one little schoolhouse. That's all. It's Carol Hood, 3 Smith Ave, but
Mr. Moderator, Robert Carruthers, 33 Wiles Road. My wife and I are fairly new in Sterling. We came and went down to the 1835 building when that was being discussed. And I heard individuals in this room, I don't know who they are, someone to tear it down and move on, and someone to save it. And one of the individuals that led in that had my first name. I can't mention the name, but my name is Robert. Now we have an 1835, which I think makes this town of Sterling have some history. It looks good. Most of us drive around Sterling. When I joined here, there was a character driving, new and old in the mix. For $11,000, I heard, I decided right now, give them time for 1 year, or whatever it takes, to come up with some proposals. In the meantime, save it. Work on it. It adds to this town character.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, we're going to put this. Well, At this point in time, we're going to put the motion to a vote. This is a majority, simple majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 114, no votes 50. Moving on to Article 32, naming of softball field 1, Griffin Road. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to name a Griffin Road softball field after Joanne Cummings. Do I hear such motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Moderator, Bob Dumont, 7 Great Pond Way. Is there any way that this meeting could do this favorable vote by acclamation? Question.
No, I think we'll...
Where's the
By
parliamentarian?
affirmation? We're going to do the vote like we normally do, so that it's technical and correct. How's that?
Well, I think the minutes, it would be very good if the minutes could reflect at least a unanimous vote for this article, and instead of, if you can't do it by acclamation, so.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing as there's no further discussion, we will put this to a vote, and voting begins now. The voting is closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 143, no votes 8. I'd like the record to reflect that there was applaud after that vote. Okay. Moving on to Article 33, Principal Use Change. Oh, okay. Oh, this is it. So do I have a motion on Article 33? You have to present the motion. Oh, okay. I thought that was my copy. Yes.
Joe Testagrossa, 6 Bean Road, Sterling. I move that the town vote to amend the protective bylaws, Article 2, Sections 2.3.1, as presented in Article 33 of the warrant.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? There is a second. Having heard a motion and a second, is there discussion?
Joe Testagrossa again, 6 Bean Road. Article background, originally changed at the 2021 town meeting, Article 41 titled, this is what it was titled, Use Regulations Family Child Care, and it was a consent vote. This yes vote changed some wording for child care facilities and allowed child care facilities in town center zone. It also expanded 7 commercial zone uses into light industrial zone and expanded a light industrial zone use into commercial zone through special permitting mainly. Today's Article 33 focuses on the last change. The majority of the town's commercial zone property is found on Route 12 and either abuts residential or town center zone property. The open lot storage, AKA contractor's yard, which was originally only allowed in light commercial zone, that type of use tends to level yacht lots and attracts piles of sand, stone, large equipment, etc. This open lot storage activity affects both the residential property around it negatively and discourages, I think this is the most important part, discourages commercial businesses such as medical, dental offices, daycare facilities restaurants, stores, etc., from locating next to them due to the industrial type of activity on those properties, since it's in the industrial use table. I believe by changing this bylaw, we would help protect the small amount of commercial property that the town has for commercial businesses, and also keep our main road access, Route 12, from becoming a visual mess of dirt piles, equipment, and outdoor product storage. I think this will improve property values of both residential and commercial properties. Thank you.
Further discussion?
The planning board was split on this change, this citizen petition. We had two members who thought that we already allow such a limited number of uses in the commercial district that they wanted to keep this. We had two planning board members who thought that the open lot storage of building materials was more appropriate for the light industrial district and not the commercial district. So the board was split 2-2 on this.
Yes, sir.
Sir, Mike Temple, 12 Bean Road. I just want everyone to understand on this article that this is returning to what we had in this town prior to 2021. This change was done in 2021 at a town meeting by consensus. There was no discussion, there was no debate, and the article refers to daycare as mentioned previously. This did not mention that a light industrial use was now going to use a heavier use, as most of us would think of it, onto commercial property. Most of us, when we think of commercial property, think of retail. We even mention antique stores, etc., restaurants, other things here. We're now talking about heavy equipment, backup alarms, large pile of debris, Connex containers, etc., being put on commercial lots, which not only devalue the commercial lots within the town, but the residents that have to be around these. Living with one next to me, I beg you people, don't do this to yourself, please. Change this back to the way it was. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Brian Foley, 383 Redemption Rock Trail. The contractor use of a property in a commercial zone has to be it's accessory or incidental to a primary use, which is a commercial use of a commercial property. So as part of this article, okay, which I don't agree with, that any business could have any type of truck or equipment, and that could be deemed a contractor yard. My other question is, we already have an extensive special permit process in place, which is access to check and balances. And through the moderator, I'd like to ask if anyone from the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, supports this or sees a need that our present special permit process doesn't adequately address this. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a member of ZBA who would like to address that?
ZBA.
Pat Fox.
Patrick Fox for the ZBA, thank you. The ZBA, like the planning board, was split on this particular issue. There were some members, I think the majority of the members were in favor of the proposal in the article, but there were at least some who were opposed. So it was certainly not unanimous. Speaking as an individual and not as a representative of the board, I support the article.
Thank you.
Joe Chestergross, 6 Bean Road. I just want to let people know, though, is we're not, I mean, my intent on this is just to get back to where we were so we can make if you look at the bylaw, it is too vague, and I think I had a lot of agreement that it was too vague when I've had discussions with boards. I'm all for us in promoting commercial business. I just think if we could be a little bit more smart about, instead of whatever you have, you can put on your property, and it could be large equipment, it could be piles of dirt, it could be this. It's just the article's too, the bylaw is too vague, so I would like to bring it back to light industrial and have us have time to work on it to promote business.
Is this something new?
Just a point of clarification, Mike Temple, 12 Bean Road. Please realize this doesn't change anything that's existing. This is not stopping people from working, people that currently have permits, currently people that are working on these properties with their allowed rights. This is simply to change the process moving forward from next year. That's all.
Kyle Carini, 12 Matthew Lane, Sterling Planning Board Chair. Speaking as a resident, I'm opposed to this change. The town of Sterling does not have a lot of commercial property. I don't think we need to impose more restrictions on what small amount of commercial property we have. As it stands now, a contractor yard is allowed by special permit. Each application would have to go through site plan review, and the permit issuing authority would have the right to say no if it doesn't fit. It is a case-by-case review of each location. There are areas with sufficient distances for this, or where they may not even be seen at all. To blanket the entire town's commercial property with this change would not be appropriate to those areas that would have no issues, and this certainly would not promote business. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're going to put this article to a vote. This requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. The article does not pass. Yes votes 70, no votes 68, so it does not have 2/3 majority. Moving on to Article 34, principal use change. This is a citizen's petition. Do we have a citizen that is willing to make the motion? Can you get a little bit closer? Yeah.
Yep. Hi, I'd like to motion this.
Okay. You have it down. Okay. So if you could identify yourself and make the motion.
Yeah. My name is Pam Cully, and I live at 343 Redemption Rock Trail, and I motion to amend the protective zoning bylaws, Article 2, Section 2.3.1, Table of Principal Uses, number 15, retail sales, including antique stores. I had applied back in the spring for a permit.
Can I just make a clarification? You
Sure.
have to read the motion exactly
Okay.
how you want it.
Okay.
Okay.
That was the motion, that I want to amend it to a vote to a special permit.
Okay. Because what you read was different than what you gave me.
Sorry.
Okay.
I want a motion to amend the protective zoning bylaws, Article 2, Section 2.31, the principal uses, as is stated in the warrant.
Just read this.
Okay. I would like to move the town to vote to amend the protective zoning bylaws, Article 2, Section 2.3.1, Table of Principal Uses, number 15, retail sales, including antique shops, to allow by special permit as presented in Article 34 of the warrant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
My name again is Pam Cully, and I live at 343 Redemption Rock Trail. If nobody knows where that is, it's directly across from Beeman's Tavern. I've lived in town for 36 years, and I recently applied to try and open up an antique store in my barn, which is located on my property. I found out that I wasn't allowed because in a rural residential zone, they do not allow it, period, because it is under the retail sales, including antique shops. And I would like to have it changed to a special permit, so that way the town can still have authority to be able to govern what is allowed, what isn't allowed, and to be able to vote yes or no on the application in the future.
Further discussion? Mr. Planner?
The planning board was unanimously against this 4-0. While we did not have a issue with this woman's proposal to open up an antique shop at her location, the article as written would open up the rural residential district, which is the bulk of the town. It would open it up to all kinds of retail sales being allowed by special permit.
Again, Pam Cully. If you look at the table uses, I can apply for a special permit for, sorry, excuse me, my notes here turned on me. I can apply for an ammunition and firearms store, retail sales, but I cannot open an antique store in a rural residential area. I can also apply for a bed and breakfast, a recreational facility, a child care center. All I'm asking is to change it to a special permit so that, again, the town can say yes or no for future applicants. I don't foresee this being just a retail issue. Unfortunately, antiques is under that category. I'm only planning on opening on the weekends. It's not a 7-day-a-week job, 6 in the morning till 9 at night. So it's all different criterias, and I think that that should be accounted for when it goes into a special permit and not just a strict no vote.
Okay.
So.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll put this to a vote. This article requires a 2/3 vote to pass, and voting starts now. We're having an issue with the voting, so if you could just hold off and I'll restart the voting. Okay, voting starts now. God bless you. Voting is closed. The article does not pass, does not have 2/3 majority. Yes votes are 71, no votes 54. Moving on, that is the end of the citizens' petitions. Moving on to Article 35, Chapter 18, Animal Control Bylaws. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 18-2 of the town's general bylaws Animal Control, Chapter, Section 18-2, Definitions, as presented in Article 35 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll put this to a vote. This requires a majority vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. Article passes. Yes votes 96, no votes 16. Moving on to Article 36, Chapter 18, Animal Control Bylaws. I would entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 18-3 of the town's general bylaws, Animal Control, License and Rabies Vaccination, as presented in Article 36 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do I have discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this to a vote. This is a majority vote. Voting starts now. Voting is closed. Motion passes. Yes vote 104, no votes 10. Moving on to Article 37, Chapter 18, Animal Control Bylaws. I will entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 18-4 of the town's general bylaws, Animal Control, Special Permits and Kennel Licenses, as presented in Article 37 of the warrant. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll put that to a vote, and vote starts now. Voting is closed. Motion passes. Yes votes 104, no votes 9. Moving on to Article 38, Chapter 18, Animal Control Bylaws. I will entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 18-6 of the town's general bylaws, Animal Control, Owner Responsibility, as presented in Article 38 of the warrant. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put that to a vote, and voting starts now. Voting is closed. Motion passes. Yes votes 102, no votes 11. Move on to Article 39, Chapter 18, Animal Control Bylaws. Entertain a motion to move that the town vote to amend Section 18-7 of the town's general bylaws, Animal Control, Impoundment of Animals, as presented in Article 39 of the warrant. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, put this to a vote. Voting starts now. Voting's closed. The motion passes. Yes votes 96, no votes 11. Move on to Article 40, Annual Town Election. I'd like to remind all those present that on Monday, May 8th, we have our general election in town. It is being held at the Houghton Elementary School gym on 32 Bootel Road, right down the street. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to dissolve the town meeting. There's no discussion on a motion.
I know, I just want-
We have a motion to dissolve. I have a second. All those in favor? All right. The meeting's, any noes? No.
I just
We can
wanted to-
vote if you want. Roseanne, go ahead and speak.
I wanted to thank John Kilcoyne for his years of service. Thank you,
Oh.
John.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah. John would like to address the audience.
Just want to thank everybody here tonight for showing up and for your support over a lot of years. It's been a privilege to serve, and I want to also thank Rich Lane for stepping up tonight in the absence of our town moderator. You did a great job.